Now we're on to part two. Part two is all about the action of sanding. We learned about different types of sandpaper grits. Now we're actually going to learn the steps of sanding. First thing we have to know is what type of grit are we going to start with. And because we're doing the famous cutting board and we know it's hardwood, we're going to start off with 80 grit sandpaper. So I'm using a bench hook. This is a grade 8 extra project and I really like it. I use it at home all the time. And you can just put your wood on there and it's not going to go anywhere. And I take my sandpaper, same sandpaper I've been using. I put the nice soft back into my sandpaper, and now I just line myself up and I sand north and south. And there I go, nice and slow, nice and even, back and forth, back and forth. Supporting with my left hand just so that I don't want to really clamp this down. If I do, I'm going to put marks on it. And I don't want to put any marks on my project. Back and forth. Now you're going to have to do this for quite a while. I mean, you might even have to bring it up to 60 grit to make it really work. There's some deep scratches on here. So I'm just going to fast track in. This is 80. Then I would use 100 grit sandpaper. And then 120. And then I'm getting down to 150, and then I'd finish it off with 220. So 220 is the finest grit of garnet paper that I have. Again, I have to break its back like I did last time. So I just break its back. And when you're using this, you probably notice how thin the paper is. That's one of the reasons why I don't use it on a orbital hand sander, because it tears too quick because it's just so thin compared to the very thick 60 or 80 grit sandpaper. So we come back here and we sand again. And we just keep on sanding, going north and south, back and forth, lining up. And you don't have to be a rocket scientist to sand. And just back and forth. And it takes a long time. It will probably, if you're sanding this top, it'll probably take you 2 periods just to sand one side. That's how long it takes. Now we've got our brush in hand. What we want to do is brush off all the sawdust that we had on here. And the reason for that, and we should be doing that each time, if I miss that somehow in the video, just remember how important this is. If you don't remove all the sawdust, then all the grits from the previous sandpaper, which are larger than the ones that you are now using, are going to scratch the wood. If that doesn't make sense, you need to see me. So now we are ready to wet sand. So with wet sanding, first thing you want to do is apply some moisture. We're just going to use water in this case. And what's happening right now, our old fibers in the wood they're swelling up because the wood is so dry, and it's just like little trees that are laying on the forest. They're just popping up like this. And it takes about 20 minutes to get right where you want it. So what we do is we're going to do a little bit of magic on the camera. We're just going to pretend that 20 minutes goes by and huggy action. we're having fun here. So what you want to do now is take the 800 grit sandpaper. Again, you're taking your sanding block, and I've already broken the back of the sandpaper, line myself up, and this time instead of going north and south, I'm going to be going across the grain, because what I'm doing, I'm just like a logger, I'm chopping down those trees that just popped up off the floor of the forest. So they're all popped up, so I'm chopping them off like having a chainsaw, just chopping them right off. And what at the end of the day, it makes it super smooth. In fact, it's so powerful that I can feel the suction of my sandpaper on here trying to move the board. So then I leave it again for as long as you can, an hour might be a good idea. And now what we want to do is go back to, let's just pretend an hour went by, and then we're going to take the 220 grit sandpaper, and now we're going to vigorously go north and south, and we're going to get rid of all those 800 grit scratches that we just used with the black sandpaper, which will come off really easy because it's so fine. 220 grit is way more just a hard grit. Okay, here we go. Oh, super smooth. Oh, that's nice. Super smooth. And then what I would suggest is just wait a little while, let it kind of dry down a little bit. Just leave it for a while, and then sand it one more time with 220. And then it's really important to get a nice dry cloth and wipe it off, and it'll be super smooth. And next day, what we'll do is we'll put on the oil finish next week. So now what you want to do is wait for the famous joke that is just going to be coming up, woodwork joke. Have a good day.